Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our civic presentation today. Today, we'll be presenting the power of diet in diabetes, mindful eating during the holiday season. Today's presenter is Ruben Diaz. He is a family nurse practitioner specialized in diabetes care and education. He holds a doctorate degree specializing in diabetes and currently works as a diabetes nurse practitioner at hospitals for special surgery. Ruben also works as an adjunct faculty professor teaching nursing students at NYU Rory Mayers College of Nursing. The next voice you will be hearing is Ruben Diaz. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here today to discuss mindful eating during the holidays. I think this is a great topic, especially with the upcoming Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I hope that I can be of help with your eating decision making during this time, and also just as a permanent way of life in general. So today I want to briefly just go over the AADE 7 self-care tips. It's the foundation of our diabetes education for people with diabetes or even pre-diabetes, just looking to make sure they remain healthy. And we'll go over diet and diabetes, sort of what it means to someone with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And we'll go over some nutrition goals, brief food label reading, which I hope you'll be familiar with, especially when you're out there shopping or even when you're looking at a menu in a restaurant, just being familiar with some of the terms. We'll use hands to determine portion sizes to kind of estimate, I call it guesstimation, of the food that you're about to consume or the decisions of how you lay out your plate. We'll go over macronutrients are basically the greater part of what you eat, the whole items like carbohydrates and the fats. And we'll go over that as well, and beverages to consider. Also, healthful eating patterns. We're moving away from concentrating on the macronutrients and really looking at just healthy eating patterns in general. And then we'll work out some sort of a plan and build a plate together. So part of the AADE 7 self-care tips, the first one you can see here is nutrition. So what we're looking for is to make sure that we develop healthy eating habits and develop a healthy meal plan. And part of that is activity as well. So staying active, whether prescribed or personally making the decision to start being active towards weight management or weight reduction. And these two primary items are called lifestyle strategies or lifestyle modifications. And they are always the foundation for managing your health, whether or not you have diabetes. And we'll be discussing the nutrition aspect today. The others are monitoring, which I'll touch upon, and medication if it's prescribed and if someone needs it. In type 1 diabetes, of course, you need insulin all of the time. And then we'll go over any problem solving if you have questions at the end of the presentation for reducing your risk and just healthy coping problem solving. Again, so lifestyle management is the foundation to prevent, also to delay or to put diabetes into remission for type 2 diabetes, that is, and to support management for type 1 diabetes. So today, like I said, we'll discuss nutrition support, diet. I don't like to call it diet. It should really be a way of life of eating healthfully. And again, the routine physical activity, exercise, weight management, avoid smoking, and just having some psychosocial support, whether it's from friends, colleagues, family, or even support groups of others that are experiencing what you are experiencing. So again, in type 2 diabetes, we'll focus on lifestyle management today. And type 1 diabetes, it also helps, although insulin is required, to engage in healthy eating and exercise to increase insulin sensitivity and hopefully impact the amount of daily insulin that the person has to take for blood sugar control and overall health. So the question is, what are the goals of nutrition? So really we want to promote healthy eating patterns, and we're looking for a variety of nutrient-dense foods. This is not to be confused with calorie dense foods that may not have the nutrients that promote our health. So we're looking for a variety of nutrient dense foods, and we're going to focus on portion sizes towards overall health, weight management or reduction, delaying or preventing diabetes, and that's type 2 diabetes, of course, and individualizing the goals, such as the blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol, based on each person's individual profile. What I do want you to experience is I want you to maintain your pleasure of eating. We want to deliver non-judgmental messaging, whether it's us as those that are around you, supporting you, or even to yourself, making sure you're not being judgmental about what you're eating and what you're choosing to eat. And of course, limiting food choices only when it's medically and scientifically supported. So over restricting foods is not a good idea unless there's some kind of a foundation for doing that based on your personal condition. We want to address your individual nutrition needs. So there are personal preferences, needs and goals that includes cultural, behavioral. So are you willing, or not only are you willing, but are you ready? And what's your ability to be able to engage in healthy eating? And we want to always keep in the back of our minds the structural barriers, such as access to healthy foods. We always talk about food deserts, and sort of figuring out how to integrate healthy foods under conditions that are not so optimal, even just financial. And I would like to provide practical tools today to help you develop healthy eating patterns. So I may say what's new in nutrition, but it has been more of a transition and just a gradual change over time. So I found myself initially teaching about nutrition and focusing on macronutrients, how many carbohydrates you should have in a day, percent or grams, how many proteins, how many fats. And we're really trying to move away from that and towards just addressing more healthy eating patterns. And today I will briefly touch on those primary diets or nutrition intake ways of eating that are really scientifically being studied. We do require a lot more studies, but it's what we have right now that seems to be working. And so we have the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, a low carbohydrate, vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based. That's a very big deal these days and has great outcomes with decreasing inflammation and helping with diabetes management. And lastly, we'll touch on mindful eating. And you will see why I've left mindful eating for last. So the food label, it depends, of course, on someone's literacy level, their ability to read through these labels, and also numeracy, so the ability to do the math and count. And I'm just hoping that I'll start with the food label, and then I'll move towards more broader education and planning so that it doesn't require reading a label, but if you can, it would be very helpful, especially when you're grocery shopping, or if you see some of these terms in a menu in a restaurant, so that you're familiar with these terms. So of course, in a nutrition label, you want to start at the top as it's laid out and look at how many portions are in this item that you're planning on purchasing or consuming. And as you can see here, there are two rations or two portions of food in this entire container, if this was a container of food. And the calories you can see here is per ration. So this is saying that everything below that green bar will tell you if you consume just one portion of this, let's say if it's 1 cup, or in this case, 228 grams, then everything below that green bar is what you will be consuming as far as the macronutrients. If you eat everything, the whole container, then everything that's below that green bar should be multiplied by 2. And you can see how this becomes complicated. So that is why I feel like this is a great foundation. And then we'll move on to a broader view. The calories, of course, is how much calories will be consumed, as far as that's how much energy that will be used for energy in your body. Total fat. So you're really looking at something here. It says 12 grams of fat or 8 grams of fat. It's ideal if something that's considered low fat, which is really preferred, is 5 grams of fat or less. And if you look at the percent daily value column on the right, you can see that 5% is ideal. But here with the 8 grams of fat, you have a 10% daily value. So that's just telling you that if you were to eat 100% of this amount of fat, then that's really the maximum for a daily diet. But again, low fat is preferred. Sodium, really low sodium is a big movement now. We're really looking towards reducing the amount in by avoiding processed foods, prepackaged foods. And so here again, we're looking for a sodium, it says 160 milligrams. You're looking for 5% on that percent daily value on the right. And low sodium item would be optimal. On the next, total carbs. So carbohydrates are what drive blood sugar. Excess carbohydrates, which are starches, can be stored as fat. So it's important that you look at this, especially when it comes to if you're calculating insulin and using carbohydrates to do this. Total carbs, we'll go over how much per meal is considered a good amount. And really, we're looking at no more than 45 grams of carbs for low carb diet and 60 grams of carbohydrates for an entire meal for a regular carbohydrate diet. And snacks should be about 15 grams. Protein, that's really what's going to help keep you full. Won't really have a great impact on blood sugars in general. And you can see here the protein is 3 grams, and we'll go over how much protein or how to lay out your plate. Nutrients, of course, you want to see what the vitamins and minerals are in the food item. And that's depending on what diet you're on. But it can be very helpful to see if there are vitamins and minerals. More, the higher, of course, or the more you have, is for a healthful diet. And in percent daily value, I went over it. Usually when it says 5% or less, it's considered a very healthy item. For salt, choose and prepare foods with little or no salt. A word of advice I can give is if you buy prepared foods, or if you just buy foods like in the freezer section or packets that contain sauces or salts to add to food to prepare them, you can always omit those and add your own herbs, spices, and things like lemon for flavor, rather than using the packets that come with those meals. So I wanted to show you how to use your hands to sort of, if you're not reading food labels or if you're in a hurry, or if they're just not available, you can use your palm. Now the palm of your hand as open would be for a portion of protein. Vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, 2 cupped hands. If you can envision, that's how much really should be in one meal, which is half of a plate. A fruit, it's about the size of a baseball when we consider the size of a fruit, and it should fit in cupped in 1 cupped hand. Starches, looking at a closed fist, you can see that's about the size, let's say that's 1 cup of cooked starch, and that would be the maximum that you would consider for that meal. And we'll see that in the plate method, how to lay out your plate to successfully include starches, but also with the portion control. And of course, we're looking at healthy fats, and that's the tip of your thumb as far as how much fats should be in one meal. And then you have cheese. It could be from the base of the thumb to the tip of your thumb. And again, looking at carbohydrates, you're using your hands to sort of estimate how much you should be having for that meal. Using your hands just to provide a better visual. So you can see here how a clenched fist equals about 1 cup of starches. The front of your closed fist equals about half a cup. So if you're looking at beans, for example, half a cup of beans on your plate is considered 1 portion of carbohydrates. And you would use the front of a closed fist to estimate that. The proteins, again, the palm of your hand. And when you're looking at fats, you're using fingertips. Proteins, make sure to include healthy sources of lean or high fiber proteins, such as plant protein. So that's nuts and legumes, which are practically beans, fish or seafood, and low fat or non-fat dairy items, lean cuts of meat, and limiting the red and processed meats. Healthy choices for protein. Lean proteins are preferred. That includes chicken. The chicken breast, of course, has less fat than the dark meat. Turkey, fish, pork, beef. Also on plant-based diets or as an alternative to meat, which you can do on 1 or 2 days a week. It doesn't have to be done all at once. You can include tofu, tempeh, which is also made from soybean product, seitan, which is a product of wheat, but most of it is the wheat content is washed away. It's very high protein. It won't have an impact on your blood sugar as would a usual carb. Edamame, lentils, and black beans. Those are great proteins to include in your diet. Cooking and preparing food also impacts regardless of what proteins you choose. If it comes to meats, of course, trimming off excess fat, grilling, baking, or broiling in preparation is preferred, and saving the frying for special occasions. Fruits and vegetables, choose a wide variety to get a full range of nutrients from foods. This is preferred over supplements, and I'll discuss very briefly later how supplements are really meant for those that have a deficiency, not really just to replace food items. Fruit groups, 1 serving, just to get an idea of what 1 serving of fruit is. And you'll see on the very bottom where it says dried fruits, it's really preferred to have fresh whole fruit. You can have dried fruits, but you can see that a 1/4 cup is equal to about 1 fresh whole fruit. So in terms of the feeling of fullness and also having less impact on your blood sugar, if blood sugar is a concern, the whole fresh fruit with the fiber is really preferred rather than juicing it, of course, which gets rid of the fiber. So 1 small apple, orange, peach, pear, or nectarine. Again, we use the hand method, an open hand to measure that. Also for visual, it's about the size of a baseball. 1 small banana. Usually I look at the tip of the longest finger and measure down to the very bottom where the palm of the hand ends, and that's usually the adequate size of a small banana. 1 large kiwi, half a grapefruit if it's not contraindicated for you with your medications. Half a cup of unsweetened applesauce, 3/4 cups of chunks of fruit. And I will say pineapple chunks is listed there, but the berries, whether it's blueberry, blackberry, strawberries, those are preferred. They're higher in fiber and have less impact on your blood sugar than do tropical fruits. And of course, you can see you can have more of the berries. With strawberries, you can have 1 1/4 cups versus the 3/4 cups of the blueberries or blackberries. Also watermelon, since it has a lot of water content, again, 1 1/4 cups is really considered 1 portion, and 1 cup of cantaloupe, honeydew, or papaya also is a portion. And of course, we always say try to avoid unopposed carbohydrates. So if you're having something from this fruit group, try to combine it with something from the protein, some fat, fiber, or protein with it, so you can slow down the fruit, which is natural carbohydrates, from speeding up and going right through your system and spiking your blood sugar. Making healthy vegetable choices. So we recommend at least 2 to 3 servings per day. Look for sales and vegetables that are in season for optimal nutrition. Choose different colors for a variety of nutrients. Fresh from the farmer's market or local grocery store is a great thing to look for. Frozen plain vegetables, they're nutritious and convenient when those items are not available, especially now that the winter is coming and the farmers markets may not be available. Always look at the food label if you're able to, because again, not all food packages are created equal, and there are times when sodium is added to extend shelf life. So make sure to look at that food label. Canned vegetables, watch out for sodium, but you can purchase canned vegetables. Even look at the low sodium items. It can be deceiving. I've seen low sodium items that are still in excess of the sodium that really should be in there. And what I have not listed here is also just beans that are in the bag that have not been cooked yet, that you can take the time to soak and cook. And if you're just really pressed for time, just take the time to do that and freeze it out into portions, and you can use that at a later time as well. Non-starchy vegetables. I won't go over this list in its entirety. If you Google or you can speak with a dietitian, there's always information out there on what vegetables are non-starchy, which are the vegetables that you're going to use to build the half of the plate. So these include artichoke, asparagus, beets, Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, peppers, squash, tomatoes, turnips. So you see a large list of items, and there are some surprising items on here, such as carrots. People always ask me about carrots. They're sweet, but they're high in fiber and they don't impact your blood sugar, such as corn would. So corn is not on this list, as you can see, because it may cause blood sugar spikes, and it is starchy. Whole grains and fibers. Choose whole grains and other foods made up of mostly whole grains. And I wanted to show you, because even to me, it can be confusing. What does whole grain mean? So the whole grain, you can see here, it contains the bran, the endosperm in the middle, and the germ. Unfortunately, refined grains, they're processed to remove the bran, which is that outer dark brown layer, and the germ. And these are both nutrient rich. The bran, it has a lot of fiber and contains B vitamins and trace minerals. And the germ also contains antioxidants and minerals and healthy fats. And I'll show you on the next slide what that really looks like when you're choosing food items. So this is an example. This is rice. This is the kernel of a rice on the plant on the left. And once it is processed, it either becomes brown rice or white rice. There is parboiled rice that's between brown and white rice, but we won't cover that today. But brown rice, you can see, has preserved the outer bran and germ layer that I was discussing a slide ago, that has all of those healthful fats, nutrients, fiber. And once that is removed, that's what is white rice. It is a refined grain, and those vitamins and minerals and healthy fats have been removed. In terms of eating rice, cup for cup, they do contain the same amount of carbohydrates, which is why I want to mention which type of rice is healthier. So as I discussed before, I wanted to get into detail because the fact that they do have the same amount of carbohydrates, you can still see that brown rice has more whole grains, vitamins, minerals, and dietary fiber. And it doesn't mean now you can have more of the brown rice than the white rice. It just means you're getting other health benefits from the brown rice. And in having fiber, you're also staying full longer, feeling more satisfied after the meal, and you're getting other heart health benefits to eating the brown rice. Again, looking at a white potato versus a sweet potato. People tell me, well, a sweet potato must have a lot of sugar and more sugar than a white potato, so I'll eat the white potato instead. So again, white potatoes, they have been given a bad reputation. They do have great vitamins and minerals as well. But if you compare them, the same amount of potatoes, white potato to sweet potatoes, you can see they have the same amount of carbs. This goes back to the rice, also same amount of carbs, cup for cup. But if you look at the amount of fiber in the sweet potato, the fiber is higher in the sweet potato at 6.6 grams. And look at the vitamin A, 1% in a white potato and 1,281% in a sweet potato. Vitamin C, double in the sweet potato. So again, it's important to be educated on what works best for you, depending on your personal preference, because you may prefer a white potato. And again, to keep it healthier, you would want to keep the skin on the white potato and make it part of that meal rather than removing that. So you can make sure to preserve a higher fiber content. It doesn't mean you can't have it, it's just your personal choice. The starches, what's one serving of starch? Again, a slice of bread, a quarter of a large bagel or half of a mini bagel, half a hamburger bun. People often elect to eat a hamburger and remove the top bun, or substituting it for a pita bread or an English muffin. 1/3 cup of rice is considered a portion, half a cup of beans, half a cup of oatmeal, 1 small tortilla, 6 saltines, and 3 cups of popcorn. So you can see you have a wide variety to choose from, but just knowing what's going to go in either a snack or the quarter of a plate that we'll discuss later, what you can actually place in these different portions. And from dairy, of course, 1 cup of milk or 2-3 cups of plain or aspartame sweetened yogurt. Carbs, very important. That's why I'm going really deep into the carbs and have more information on this. Whole carbs, starchy vegetables like the potatoes or sweet potatoes, beans, lentils, peas, whole grain brown rice, quinoa. I've often resorted to, if I still want to eat my white rice, I have mixed it with quinoa and cooked it the same way as I would normally cook rice. And that increases the nutrition content of my meal and adds protein in there with my rice, fruits and vegetables, and pasta. Actually, even how you prepare pasta, if you make it al dente, you cook it according to the package and keep it more firm, it actually processes different in your body and won't spike your blood sugar as much as overcooking your pasta. Also, when pasta cools down, it actually functions differently than pasta that's heated up and cooked and eaten right away. Refined carbs really should be avoided or have had sparingly or during a special occasion, and that includes candy, sodas, pastries, sugary cereals, and white bread. If you can't omit them for some reason, or you're just in the transition phase where you're deciding, even reducing the amount of simple carbohydrates is really important. Fiber, again, you want whole grains, preferable over refined grains, and at least half of your grain consumption, if you're choosing to have refined grains, it really should be from whole intact grains. And again, high fiber is in fruits, vegetables, and grain products that we reviewed. Oils and fats, making sure to use liquid that's at room temperature. If it remains liquid, that's preferable. And of course, non-tropical plant oils such as olive or sunflower oils are preferred. Healthy fats, oils, there are different ones, mono and polyunsaturated fats. Those are healthy oils. And of course, omega-3 fatty acids that you usually find in fresh fish. You find it in tuna, trout, herring. It's also in tofu and soybeans and walnuts and flax seeds. In a food label, of course, trans and saturated fats are listed. Mono and polyunsaturated fats do not have to be legally listed on a food label. So you may not always see them. So it's important just to know which ones they are. And of course, mono just means one, and it just means the fat is a single chain. it'll be healthier for you. And that's like the canola and nuts such as almonds and cashews. Again, the olive oils, peanut butter, sesame seeds, and avocado. And although these are healthy fats and oils, you do want to make sure that you don't overconsume because anything in excess can also lead to challenges. And polyunsaturated fats just have a longer chains of fats. They're also healthy, such as, again, seeds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and low-fat mayonnaise. We asked to stay away from ultra-processed foods, choose minimally processed foods rather than these ultra-processed foods that basically they're not very satisfying in the long term. They won't keep you full. It can actually lead to overeating because they're just not satisfying. They can cause inflammation in the body, and they're just missing those vitamins and minerals that are really helpful to you on a day-to-day basis. Avoiding added sugars, they can be hidden anywhere. And it's important to minimize the intake of beverages with added sugars and foods with added sugars. And most of our diet, where this comes in, is in beverages and, of course, in snacks and sweets. But also they can be found in sauces and other items that can easily be snuck into your foods. And I'm really talking about when you're dining out. And water really should be your primary beverage. There are flavored seltzers nowadays that have no sugar in them, and from all kinds of brands, from Polar to Bubbly or Bubbly and LaCroix. But they can be very inexpensive, especially if you find them on sale. Here you have regular seltzer water. And on the right side, just be careful with coconut water. Often people consume this and aren't aware just naturally, even without, and not being from concentrate and not adding sugar. It is from a tropical fruit. And here you have 12 grams of carbohydrates in coconut water that has not been processed. So just be aware of what you're consuming. And again, that's how I say that these sugars are snuck into beverages. Even the natural sugar is still a sugar. So it's important to consider the food label in your choices. Artificial sweeteners can be used sparingly, but not regularly. If you've already eaten a large amount of carbohydrates in a meal, this can be a good way to offset not adding additional added sugar beverages. But again, these artificial sweeteners or sugar alcohols go undigested through your intestines and can cause gas and bloating and an upset stomach and just problems with your gut system, your stomach. Also, having artificial sweeteners either in foods or beverages, it doesn't necessarily satisfy your sugar cravings and can actually lead to overeating. So just be cautious with your hunger cues. Alcohol, it's not prohibited for people with diabetes. There are health conditions where your provider may ask you to stay away from alcohol, especially when you're taking like blood thinners or, there are just other conditions. But in general, if you haven't already started drinking, we don't recommend to start drinking simply because you hear of health benefits of alcohol consumption. Also, alcohol 1 per day is recommended, but special occasions only is really optimal if you can do that instead. Eating with alcohol beverages is important, not in an empty stomach. Carbohydrate containing beverages, just be careful again with those, like I mentioned before. And it can really significantly impact your blood sugars. So you can have a low blood sugar simply from having alcohol and not eating. But in general, your liver takes about 2 hours to process an alcoholic beverage. And while it's doing that, your liver is unable to produce or provide sugar for you in times where you need it. And it's important to know what an actual drink is. And that's 12 ounces of beer or 5 ounces of wine or 1.5 ounces of hard liquor. So even just knowing what an appropriate portion is important. It can have a negative impact or interact with diabetes medications and other medications like I discussed earlier with blood thinners. So it's important just to know if it's appropriate to have alcohol in as part of your diet. Test your blood sugar when driving, especially if you're going to drink, again, because of the impact it has on blood sugars, and make sure to alternate any alcoholic beverages with a full glass of water afterwards. Now I just want to go over those diets that I stated earlier are the most often cited and most researched to date. And here we have the Mediterranean diet. This diet focuses on cardiovascular and heart health. This is not meant for weight loss. This can occur, but that's not the primary aim of this diet. It reduces overall mortality in studies, also any kind of sickness or death from heart-related conditions, which is cardiovascular mortality, and also incidence. That means cancer coming up in someone's health status. So there's a reduction that was noted in the studies with this diet. This diet is, and I'm focusing on the bold, high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, because this diet, what it has in common with other diets that have been recently studied, is that there is an increase in plant-based foods, and that's very important to note. It also uses olive oil as an important source of healthy fat and allows moderate wine intake. Low to moderate amounts of proteins such as fish, poultry, and dairy products are included with very little red meat. The DASH diet, this diet is meant to reduce blood pressure. And it also has other benefits, including lowering bad cholesterol. Again, you can lose weight in the process by adjusting to this DASH diet. It also aims to reduce sodium intake and saturated fat intake. So going back to the plant-based, it's high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, bean, nuts, and seeds. Low carbohydrate diet, there is no clear definition on what a low carbohydrate diet is. There are very low carbohydrate, but in general, the aim is weight loss for low carbohydrate diet. Remember that excess carbohydrates are stored as fat. It also helps to reduce risk of type 2 diabetes, and it helps to stabilize blood sugars. That's when you reduce the amount of carbohydrates in your diet, and it's usually less than 130 grams per day. And by that, you can achieve that by possibly just having 45 grams of carbohydrates per meal. And again, when I mentioned earlier what one portion of carbohydrate is, whether it's 1/3 cup of rice, or even with the fruits when we discuss 1 cup of cantaloupe. So just taking into account 45 grams of carbs would be about 3 portions or 3 different starches, amount of starches in that corner of a quarter of a plate. Low carb diet is high in proteins and non-starchy vegetables. And you can see that with protein and non-starchy vegetables, you're getting that fiber protein that's really keeping you, supposed to keep you full and satisfied, and really replacing any high amounts of carbohydrate consumption. Plant-based nutrition, this is really important to note. There have been amazing health benefits from plant-based nutrition. It comes with its caveats, and I'll discuss that on the next slide. But there are different types of plant-based diets, and you have vegan, you have vegetarian, and you have plant-based. So with a vegan diet, no animal products, only plant foods, may include refined grains, added sugars, ultra-processed foods. Vegetarian simply includes dairy or eggs, which are animal products. But plant-based, it's mostly or only plant foods. So I recommend, if you're going towards plant-based or vegetarian or vegan, and you're not quite ready, you can do more of a plant-based diet, which you can still eat the foods you're eating, but you can choose like a meatless Monday or fish Friday if you're on the vegetarian side, and just choose one day of the week where you won't eat any actual animal meat or sources. So that's a recommendation for plant-based diets. Plant-based diet consideration, proteins, usually people on plant-based diets meet that expectation, not having meat products. Calcium is usually absorbed from vegetables like bok choy and broccoli and kale, but often you find lacking low vitamin B12. You may find iron deficiency anemia. That's very common in vegan, vegetarian diets. And other supplements may also be low in the body, like vitamin D. You may be lacking omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, and iodine in the diet. But vitamin or mineral supplements really should be supported by having a conversation with a provider and seeing if you're actually deficient. Mindfulness. So with mindfulness, really, mindfulness is an awareness by paying attention on purpose, being in the present moment without judgment of what is happening moment by moment, non-judgmental on your food. Mindful meditation is that mindfulness plus meditation piece, just being intensely aware of what you are sensing and feeling in that moment, acknowledging and accepting your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. Mindful eating is gaining an awareness of the eating experience. It should be an experience for you, paying attention to your food on purpose, being present in the moment without judgment of what is happening moment by moment. And what you're trying to achieve is improving your eating pattern, increasing fruits and vegetables with mindful eating, reducing calories, and energy dense foods, which is not the same as nutrient dense foods. That means foods that are high calorie, that don't have those vitamins and minerals, and just reduce any uncontrolled eating. So just not eating large amounts of food within a few hours, and just taking the time to just notice the taste, smell, and texture of foods. Savor the moment and the food, and just be fully present for that eating experience. Mindful eating is not counting calories, carbohydrates, fats, or protein, and that's why I left it for last. It's really just being in the moment with what you have chosen to eat. Losing weight is not the goal, although it can occur as you try to introduce, as part of mindful eating, more healthful foods into your eating experience. Again, mindful eating, just be aware of tasting your food instead of just munching for the sake of just snacking or just as a habit. Savor the food, notice the texture, the aroma, the flavor. Is it crunchy, sweet, salty, smooth, or spicy? Just observe, notice your body rumbling. Is the feeling of hunger, do you feel satisfied? Do you feel full? Do you still feel like you can eat more? And just being in the moment, being present, turning off the TV, sitting down when you eat, just eating and sharing that meal with others in the moment. Non-judgmental, so being mindful and compassionate, just stick to I should, I can, and rather moving away from I can't, I shouldn't, I can't eat these things, and trying to, over time, again, introduce healthful eating items. So getting down to the holiday meals, really setting up for success is about planning, making a personal commitment to select foods to limit blood sugar rise or just for health in general, using the plate method or hand estimation, and we'll discover the plate method briefly, and post-meal monitoring. So if you're monitoring blood sugar, just check it 1 to 2 hours after the first bite of that meal to see if it went out of range or if it's within range. And that can give you very, very up-to-date and at the moment ability to problem solve for the next time that you're choosing your meal items. When you're planning, start with a healthy breakfast that day to minimize cravings later. It says at dinner, but if you can make Thanksgiving lunch instead of dinner, that would be great. At dinner, just choose the non-starchy vegetables, fill that part of your plate first. That includes, of course, green beans, spinach, asparagus, broccoli, carrots, all of those non-starchy vegetables we discussed before. Protein, that goes on a quarter of your plate, which I'll show you next. Start eating the protein first. That's a great idea to start off by filling yourself up with an item that won't spike your blood sugar and that can slow down your digestion. So when you're ready to introduce your starches, your gut system is already kind of churning those proteins, and your blood sugar shouldn't really spike as much. Non-starchy vegetables, of course, you can dig into that as well as the protein, and just try to leave the starches for a little bit later on as you're eating. What does your Thanksgiving plate look like? We're really aiming for the plate on the left, which you can see a quarter has the starches on the lower right with a roll and half a piece of sweet potato. You have your lean turkey meat with the fat removed, and you have non-starchy vegetables. As opposed to the plate on the right, that can really cause blood sugar spikes and can lead to overeating. Again, looking at how to lay out your Thanksgiving plate, just by eyeballing the plate, you can see on the right-hand side where you have vegetables on about half of the plate. You also have string beans with what looks like onions on the bottom. You do have a mix of mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes. It looks like a quarter cup each. And then you have some pasta also. And you have your lean piece of protein, as opposed to the higher calorie plate, where you can see the amount of macaroni is really overabundant, and you have about half cup each of the sweet potato and the mashed potato. So just thinking about how you want to lay out your plate. Your plate may not be perfect. It can be somewhere in between these two, but we're really leaning towards the right. So let's build a plate. Again, looking at the plate, half of it, non-starchy vegetables, it really should be a 9-inch plate. Mentally divide the plate and figure out what you're going to put in each slot. The other 2/4 of the plate are your protein and your carbohydrates, your starchy vegetables. Again, how much to eat? You have non-starchy vegetables. We discussed about two handfuls. Half of your plate, that would be the raw vegetables, steamed vegetables, even vegetable juice, hopefully with fiber in it, or a combination. The carbs, we discussed what the healthy carbs are and what your carbohydrate portions and options are. And meats or meat substitutes on the lower right, whether it's tofu or you're having turkey or tempeh or seitan for that meal. Again, making healthy decisions. You can see 20 grams of carbohydrates, which is about 1 portion of carbohydrates. And on the left, all of these items are the same amount of carbs as the items on the right. So you can see that if you do have a low fiber processed item like half a bagel, pasta, rice, potato, you can still have it. It is the same amount of carbs, but look how much more you can have if you're having the berries as far as a dessert or a snack, the salads, and it just really makes a difference when you decide what to put on your plate. A healthy American plate, what we can call American now these days, is really, again, the salad, possibly pasta, the protein, a healthy soul food plate, again, generalizing. You can have half of greens that have been steamed or stewed, and even just changing the ham hock or smoked ham for smoked turkey would be a healthier option. Just watching the salt, the macaroni, of course, the starches. It should be a quarter of your plate, and a quarter should be protein. And again, just the food preparation. So it's the baked chicken, grilled chicken is preferred over fried chicken. Healthy Criollo plate or Caribbean plate. Again, trying to make sure to include salads, not just avocado, not just cut up tomato, but making an effort to really include high fiber vegetables and making it half of your plate. The rice, you don't have to add salt during the cooking process. You can flavor it with other things like tomato sauce, low sodium, and herbs and spices, and also a quarter of protein, like I said before. Also, you can even make your own adobo if you want to. There are great recipes for that that don't include all of that salt. Healthy Mexican plate, again, 1 tortilla is a starch, and you have it there on the corner. The beans, a quarter cup is a starch, and you have your proteins and of course your non-starchy vegetables on the right. West African plate, we have the greens, we have, it looks like jollof rice, and we have some fish that looks like it's been stewed or steamed or baked. It hasn't been fried, and a healthy Chinese plate where you have actual fruits that have the whole fruit there on the plate with vegetables, chopped bok choy. You have noodles and you have your protein. Vegetarian plates, vegan plates, laid out the same way. It's just vegetables, half of the plate, starches on the upper right, and the proteins on the lower right. You have edamame, you have tofu, again, tempeh, seitan. Vegetarian includes dairy, eggs, other animal products, and you have examples there. There are tools that can help you to succeed. I do use Calorie King a lot. This is not a commercial announcement. I do not have any financial interest to disclose. I should have said that at the beginning, but I don't have stocks in anything that will work for any other companies that would impact my ability to deliver a biased opinion. But there are many apps out there that can be used to help you count calories. There's even nutrition in the fast lane that helps in choosing items when you're out eating in restaurants and in fast food places. An ideal meal plan, just briefly: breakfast, a slice of whole wheat toast, 2 large egg whites, half a cup of oatmeal, a cup of skim milk, and a small banana can meet your breakfast needs. And for lunch, a cup of vegetable soup, 6 soda crackers, that's your starch. You can still have a turkey sandwich with 2 slices of whole wheat bread, and 1 small apple. And this will meet like a 60-gram carb diet. So this is a regular carbohydrate diet, not a low carbohydrate diet. And that's for maintaining weight and controlling blood sugar. Dinner, again, 4 ounces of broiled chicken breast, 2/3 cup of brown rice, half a cup of cooked carrots, 1 small whole grain dinner roll with margarine, salad, and 2 tablespoons of low-fat salad dressing, and 1 small slice of angel food cake. And again, that's just an idea for a dinner meal plan. Snacks, half a cup of canned fruit that does not have the syrup, and a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. That's when you're combining your fat, fiber, proteins with your sugars. 2 rice cakes, a tablespoon of peanut butter. You can have an apple with peanut butter or with cheese or with almonds. Also a hard-boiled egg. You can top it with a low-carb dressing or a teaspoon of mayonnaise, or just 5 whole wheat or 6 whole wheat crackers and a piece of string cheese. Again, you're opposing the carbs by adding fat, fiber, or protein. Food preparation we discussed already: removing the skin, broiling, baking, or stir frying, or grilling, or poaching rather than frying, using low-calorie cooking sprays instead of butter. Applesauce instead of oil in baked goods works great. Adding vegetables to your stews and only egg whites when baking is really helpful when making omelets. And importantly, again, adding flavor by not adding salt with herbs, pepper, garlic, and other seasonings. Making healthy food selections, trying to select from the 5 food groups. Again, we're moving away from food groups and more towards just trying to make healthy, being conscious about the decisions you're making of what to consume and how to lay out your plate. And just be prepared, make a plan for your weekly meals. Are you going to cook? Are you going to eat out? What are you going to do when you're on the go and having to pick up fast foods? And try to stock up on healthy foods and avoiding those trigger foods in your pantry. When you eat out, try to eat half of the meal and take the other half for lunch the next day, or just sharing it with someone else. Maybe ordering 1 main meal and splitting it if it is a lot. You can split in, again, the entree or the dessert. You can ask for sauces, dressings, or gravy on the side, and just looking at the calories on the menus and on menu boards. And that's usually for restaurants that have 20 or more locations. And you can compare the calorie information before making a decision. And when you're grocery shopping, eat before shopping so you don't shop when hungry and end up buying things you didn't mean to buy. Have a list to keep a focus on the healthy foods. Look at the food labels again. And food labels usually list ingredients in order from the most to least. So if hydrogenated oils are listed first, then that's the biggest component of that item that you're eating. So just try to see what items, 2, 3 items are first listed on that nutrition label, and that's most likely most of what you will be eating. And of course, no more than 2 or 3 ingredients on the food label would tell you it's more of a whole food item rather than ultra processed. And just partner with a dietitian and with your healthcare provider so we can help you monitor if that meal changes, your dietary changes, your activity level, if it's really working for you. Is there weight loss? Do we need to change your medications based on decreased blood pressure, decreased blood sugar? Do we need to test to see if you're deficient in any vitamins or minerals that need to be supplemented if you've chosen a plant-based diet? So make sure you partner with someone, and especially if your plan isn't working for you. Remember, partner up, plan and make intentional, healthy food choices, stay active, eat healthy and maintain a healthy weight, and just set realistic goals. Like I said, just having one day of the week where you have a plant-based meal, and set a time frame for yourself. So you can set a month or 2 or 3 to see how much weight you can lose or what changes you can make. Maybe omitting just sugar sweetened beverages from your diet and keeping everything else the same. And then taking the next 3 months to make another change. So just like a stepwise progression. So before you take a walk, which really is preferable about 10 minutes after a meal, especially if you're having a Thanksgiving meal, take a family, take a friend. If you're with yourself, take a pet, just take a walk if you can, if it's safe, and 10 minutes at least, and that'll really make an impact on your health. And again, setting goals. If you can make it up to 30 minutes per day, even if it's 10 minutes after each meal, that's great. And if you can make 75 minutes per week of vigorous or 150 minutes per week of moderate activity, then that's really the basic recommended amount. So thank you very much for joining us here today for this talk. I hope it was helpful, and I'm opening it up to any questions if we have time.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Tanya.
Oh, hi.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Tanya, 1 second. Before you start with questions, I'm just going to open up a poll for the audience, and then questions can be discussed during the poll. Okay, go ahead, Tanya.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if you heard anything about apple cider and diabetes, and I would like to know if there's any like realistic study about it.
Yes, there are studies on it actually. Like I was saying, those very hot topic items, we're really trying to research. So if you want those, or at least I know there's definitely one research study that has been done. How well it has been done, I can't say. I'd have to read it and send it to you with my comments, but I do have it available if you want me to send it to you. So the way it works is you're really supposed to have, I don't endorse any alternative medicines, but I know people do them. So if people do them, I want to make sure it's being done safely. So I will say the way it's being done, this is not my personal recommendation, but is apple cider vinegar. They call it with the mother. So it's an apple cider vinegar that has to be refrigerated and is actually more whole than, it's not your typical over-the-counter processed, just straight clear vinegar. It's more of a cloudy vinegar. And it's 1 tablespoon in about 4 ounces of water. And it's supposed to be consumed before the meal. And that's before each meal. And that is supposed to help to somewhat lower blood sugar after the meal. And that's basically how that works. And there is a research paper out on that I can send to you if you want after the program.
Yes, that sounds really interesting because I was looking it up too, and I wasn't really sure if this was like a real thing. But thank you so much. I would like to have the research article.
Yes, and the apple cider gummies, I'm told, do not work. So it really has to be that liquid apple cider vinegar with the mother. And I'll send that information to you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
The gummies do taste really good though.
I know, but so far they haven't shown to work or work as well. as the actual vinegar. I know, I agree. I prefer the vinegar in my food. I don't do the apple cider vinegar, but I do add it to my onions when I put it on my mashed plantains.
Yes, I tried it once. I was trying it with my sisters. We're like, let's take shots of apple cider vinegar. And then that was the last time we did it.
Oh, we'll just mix it with 4 ounces of water and see if that
Wow.
helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Yeah.
other questions? Yeah.
If anybody would like to share any questions in the chat, feel free, and I can also voice them. Or if you'd like to share any comments or anything new you learned. I didn't know about the pasta. Cooking it al dente changes the way the nutrients go into your body either. So I didn't know about that.
Right. So food can be a touchy subject, especially when I'm speaking to Italian or Italian American patients, and they tell me, you know what, I'm not eating that whole wheat pasta. It tastes terrible. I want the real thing. So it's sort of like, it's really personal choice. So how can we help someone succeed at eating their own cultural foods as they like? I mean, I've learned a lot from my patients, and simply from someone telling me I'd rather eat regular pasta, I have to think about, well, how can I make sure not just the portion, right, which 1/3 cup is a serving, but how can the food preparation affect the whole digestion and the effect on blood sugar, and especially with continuous glucose monitoring nowadays, like the Freestyle Libre, the Dexcom, the Medtronic, you can actually see what these foods are doing to your body. So you can cook pasta, overcook it, and see what your blood sugar looks like, same amount, same sides and everything, and al dente, and see what happens. But I've learned a lot. I've had to learn a lot about the West African diet, working with patients from Harlem. And so they've taught me about kenki and other food items. And I'm like, what is that? And I really have to delve into what these food items are so I can provide appropriate education as to not necessarily preparation, but the portions, so they can be successful in their blood sugar management and in their overall health.
So speaking about food, is it true that if you, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that cooking the rice and let it sit until it gets cold, it lowers the sugar compared when you eat it hot. Is it true? I don't know.
So
Have you heard of it?
So I did hear about pasta, definitely. That
Not
is
about rice, right?
no, but I'll look that up. I'm glad you mentioned it. I will look it up to see if it's the same. I will say that jasmine rice tends to be less starchy in terms of white rices, if you want to stick to white rice. So even looking at the type of white rice, right? So jasmine tends to be more friendly than the long grain or medium grain, those short grain white rices. Not adding salt to rice. I know as a Hispanic person, I'm used to adding rice to my water and a little bit of oil. And it's really recommended, especially the DASH diet, not to add salt to the rice. So really, I can just flavor it instead with just adding oregano, some low sodium tomato sauce. I make my own adobo, and I just omit the salt, or just put very little, 1 teaspoon instead of the 2 tablespoons that are recommended to make the adobo. And so just altering your nutrition to figure out, what works best for your health and still maintain the enjoyment of your food and your culture. But I will definitely look into that rice question, and I will email Agnes back so she can disseminate it.
Yes, I received some, you could send over the article to me as well,
Yes.
so I could send it to everybody else.
I will.
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Ruben. If there's any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. For those that joined late, I also have the recording, so I will also send that out to everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben. A great presentation. I enjoyed it and learned tons. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you.
Thank you.
Learn a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.